everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Kelsey, and today we're going to be discussing a topic I've been thinking about for a while. Will our generation have its own defining style, or are we doomed to be remembered as the ones who just couldn't make up our minds? I know it sounds harsh, but let's talk about why that might be the case and how fast fashion, TikTok trends, and the state of the industry in general are affecting the way we dress today. Let's start by taking a little trip through fashion history. Every generation up until recently seems to have had a signature style, something that when you think back on it, instantly defines the era. So, for example, the 1920s had the flapper girls with their drop waist dresses, bobbed hair, flashy accessories. They were all about breaking free from tradition, embracing a more liberated lifestyle. Next, we've got the 1950s, where the rise of rock and roll brought us poodle skirts, Letterman jackets, and that iconic classic preppy look so many of us still love so much today. And the 60s, like total revolution. Hippies, bright psychedelic prints, bell bottoms, flower crowns, and fringe ruled the scene. Everyone was trying to be unique. And because of the internet, it hadn't been invented yet, you could still be unique. You could still honestly be unique. Now, fashion just looks like everyone else who is trying to be alternative. And then, even in the 1990s, we had like a total vibe then, grunge, plaid, flannels, ripped jeans, combat boots. You could look at someone and immediately know they were vibing with that angsty, anti establishment energy. These weren't just clothes, they were statements. They reflected the music, the politics, the social movements, and the overall mood of the time. But when we look at our generation, let's be real. What comes to mind? Skinny jeans, cargo pants, Y2K, I mean, the Kardashians, quiet luxury. It's a lot of things all at once. It feels scattered, right? And here's the problem: fashion today is no longer defined as a single cohesive look. Instead, we're stuck in this constant cycle of micro trends, thanks in a large part to TikTok and fast fashion. Let's break that down a little bit more. TikTok has had a huge impact on the way we consume fashion, for better or for worse. One week, your For You page is full of coastal grandmother looks, linen pants, chunky sweaters, lots of beige. The next week, it's dark academia, tweed blazers, turtlenecks, moody lighting. And then suddenly, oh, it's fairy core or cottage core or mermaid core or whatever else core. These micro trends are popping up and burning out faster than ever before. It's all so fleeting. Fashion influencers post a few outfits, and suddenly thousands of people are scrambling to buy the exact same pieces. But 2 weeks later, they're already moving on to the next trend. And that brings me to another issue I'm having: fast fashion. Brands like Shein, Fashion Nova, Zara, they're notorious for cranking out trendy clothes at record speed. And sure, it's cheap and accessible, but it's also feeding into this unsustainable cycle. And I'm not perfect either. We're buying things not because they're timeless or meaningful, but because we want to keep up with TikTok trends. And I've been there. And because it's so cheap, we don't really think twice about wearing something once or twice before tossing it aside. But those clothes, most of them just don't hold up. They fall apart, or worse, they just end up in a landfill. The bigger issue here is that fast fashion creates temporary style. It's not about craftsmanship or individual expression anymore. It's about what's popular right now. So, how can a generation create a defining style when the fashion industry is constantly pulling us in different directions, and when our attention spans are getting literally shorter and shorter by the day? Social media also creates this pressure for some of us to fit into a very specific aesthetic. We've all seen it. People dress a certain way, really not because they like it or because it feels true to them. but because they want to fit a particular aesthetic. As a fashion content creator myself who loves exploring different aesthetic trends, I'll be the first to admit that I sometimes feel partially responsible for the constant turnover in style. It's easy to get caught up in sharing the latest looks, but I really always try to approach trends by using what I already own, restyling older pieces to fit the vibe, or thrifting. I even love sewing and often make my own clothing, which helps me stay creative and unique without feeding too much into overconsumption. Plus, I donate most of the clothing that I'm gifted to kind of try to keep things sustainable. But at the end of the day, I know that there are bigger issues in the world. And honestly, fashion should be fun. It should be an escape from reality, not something that you take so seriously. Still, it's something I think about, and I try to encourage others to enjoy fashion without the pressure to constantly buy more or be somebody else or be more. Because how many times have you seen someone adopt an entire aesthetic, whether it's e girl, soft girl, visco girl, only for them to completely change their style just a few months later? There's this constant pressure to reinvent yourself, to look a certain way that's dictated by the algorithm, not by your personal taste or by overall cultural moments. So instead of a cohesive style, we're left with 10 million different aesthetics, all fighting for your attention. There's no unity, there's no central idea that binds us together as a generation. Maybe this goes beyond just the clothes we wear. Maybe it's because we don't have like a defining moment that's influencing fashion today. Think about it. The flappers were rebelling against traditional roles. The hippies were rejecting war and embracing peace, love, and nature. Grunge was all about rejecting consumerism and polished perfection. But what are we rejecting today? If anything, we're just overwhelmed by choice, choice of causes, choice of things, and oversaturation. In many ways, we're following trends more than we're really rebelling against them. So, my lovelies, will our generation ever have a defining style? It's hard to say. Right now, it feels like we're stuck in this loop of constantly changing and chasing the next trend without really stopping to consider what defines us. But I think there's hope. We are starting to see more people embrace sustainable fashion. They are focusing on quality over quantity. There's a growing awareness about the environmental and ethical issues tied to fast fashion, and more people are turning to thrift stores, vintage shops, and slow fashion brands that emphasize craftsmanship and longevity. So perhaps this will be where our generation's defining style will come from, which would be so cool. Maybe instead of being defined by a particular look, we will be defined by our approach to fashion, an approach that's more thoughtful, conscious, and sustainable. But what do you guys think? Do you agree that our generation might be the first without a defining style? Or do you think there's something brewing that we haven't quite identified yet? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm so interested to know what you think. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more fashion commentary. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.